something I want to get off my chest is really with regard. I enjoyed watching the Olympics last month, and really enjoyed it. I love sport, and I'm quite patriotic when it comes to sport, and I'm quite happy to cheer on the British sides or the English sides or whatever it is in terms of what particular sport. And of course we did so well, right? We did really well. We were second overall in the medal table. I know the Americans, they formulate their medal tables a bit different to everybody else and do it on overall medals, and so I think we'd be third on their table. But for everybody else, second in the medal table, second most goals of any nation behind the United States. And that is just such a world away from where we were 20 years ago that it just beggars belief, really. And this is something that I want to talk about, because for me that was a really exciting time, and I got so much enjoyment out of watching the Olympics, and almost everybody I know got so much enjoyment out of the Olympics. And yet we have this kind of very negative side to us in the United Kingdom, where seemingly every penny that's ever spent on anything that could be remotely enjoyable, right, that could be remotely for anything other than some dreadful frantic grasp to try and live for an extra couple of average days, is money misspent, and that it would be much better spending the money on the NHS. So it doesn't matter whatever you spend money on, whether it's hosting the Olympics in 2012, whether it's the Diamond Jubilee celebrations, whether it's spending the money that's been spent by UK sport in improving our performance in the Olympics, whether it's investing money in some scientific collaboration, some multinational, international collaboration. There's always some whining, whinging cunt who will tell you that the money would have been better spent on the NHS, right? And the problem, of course, with the NHS is that it already consumes a huge amount of money, over 120 billion pounds a year, and that you could sink another 120 billion pounds a year into the NHS and you could still spend more money on the NHS. There is never enough money to be spent on the NHS, and yet people will always make that demand as if that supersedes anything else, as if it doesn't matter what the quality of your life is, right? It just, all that really matters is how long you live for. And yet consider old folk who benefit from things like the NHS. I know how much enjoyment I got out of watching the Olympics, and how much enjoyment, often old people who are stuck in their homes, the thing that their life revolves around is watching the TV, and how much enjoyment some of them will have got out of watching the Olympics and watching our athletes perform. That is worth much more than that money would have been worth to them spending it on the fucking NHS. Because how much difference would that money have spent on the NHS? I'll tell you how much difference it would have made. Fuck all. Let me try and put it in perspective to those people who are spend the money on the NHSists. Is that, imagine if you enjoy watching my videos, and as time to time people say to me, do you know what, Jim, I'd love to have a chance to take you out for a beer sometime if I ever got to meet you. Well, imagine if you got to meet me and said, you know what, let me buy you a beer. And I said, oh no, don't spend the money on a beer. I'd sooner you kept that money in your wallet and spend that money on the NHS. You'd think I'd gone mad, wouldn't you? You'd think I'd gone absolutely fucking start raving insane. You'd say, but a beer's only going to cost me, I don't know, let's say a little over £3, right? Which is probably about, it varies around the country, but let's say a little over £3 for that beer. You'd say, come on, let me buy you a beer. That's ridiculous, but I'm sure we can afford £3 to have a little bit of enjoyment in our lives, and I don't have to donate that £3 to the NHS. And yet the funding that has taken place in the Olympics amounts to £1.09 per person per year. The amount that we were spending in Atlanta in 1996, that was when the shit hit the fan, folks. We ended up 36th in the medal table as one of the largest, most industrialized nations in the world, economically successful nations in the world. We won 1 gold medal. We were 36th in the medal table, and even we were embarrassed, even as the Brits, the perennial underachievers in sport, or at least that's kind of how we view ourselves. We're not. I think we kind of have aspirations above our station a little bit more, perhaps. And we're probably about as good as most other nations of the same size. But that, even for us, that was crap. We won 1 gold. And it was John Major, boring grey John Major, the sort of archetypal grey Prime Minister. At least we thought he was. We didn't know at the time that he was fucking one of his cabinet ministers, Edwina Currie, but he was the archetypal grey politician. He was a big sports enthusiast, and he said, no, do you know what, we need to spend some money, not out of tax, because that would be better spent. You can't spend that, it needs to be spent on the NHS. But the national lottery had started, and he said, actually, we should spend some of this national lottery money on UK sport. And the funding went over a period of years, in the last 20 years, from £5 million a year to, up to the last Olympic cycle, £370 million spread over those 4 years. And that £370 million spread over 4 years amounts to £1.09 per person, or about a third of a pint of beer per person per year. Is it really too much to ask to say that we're going to spend a third of a pint of beer per person per year on something that we might actually enjoy, that the old people that are stuck at home and the only enjoyment they get is watching the television in the corner of the room might get some enjoyment out of? Is it really too much to just spend that much money on something that's enjoyable, or does even that money have to be spent by the whinging, whining bastards, as they insist, on the NHS? I think you can probably gather what side of the fence that I've arrived upon with this. I think if there was another lottery, if there was a national lottery, I think it's about 20% of the lottery money goes to sport. If there was a lottery that I could join and all of the proceeds went to sport, do you know what? I'd spend my £1 a week on that lottery, because I think that it's well worth it. Life is for living, folks, not just for maximising and hooking out every last fucking day that you can. And if you really are concerned about that, the first thing to do is to clean up your diet, go out there and do some exercise and stop fucking smoking. Not to worry about whether somebody's spending £1.09 per person per year on the NHS. Okay, right, that's all I wanted to say on that. Well, thanks for watching. Bye for now.